I'm about to tell you a couple of secrets on how to make a really good short film for no money. Stick around. Hey, what's up guys? I am Rob Federick and welcome back to my channel. It's good to see you guys and it's good to be back. I've been away for a little while since our last video, and the reason for that is I've been kind of busy with some projects and other endeavors, but most recently I shot a short film and I wanted to jump back on the channel and share some practical advice and tips that I think you guys can apply as filmmakers to get your own short films off the ground. But the kicker to that is I actually shot this short for no money. And I wanted to make sure that I could share some of the advice on how I was able to do that so that you guys can apply it and hopefully get some of your great ideas off the ground and make some awesome short films yourselves. Well, we're gonna cover some topics today that will hopefully help you guys to elevate your short films and get them off the ground for practically no money. And I'm gonna show you guys some tips on how to be resourceful and creative so that you guys can apply some of that knowledge and hopefully make your short films a reality. Let's get right into it. First and foremost, guys, I know it's been a little while, and if you haven't already, just hit a like and subscribe on the video. It helps support this channel. It helps me to continue to provide valuable information for you guys and to be able to put these videos out there. Thanks again for doing that. Your support goes such a long way. Let's get back into the video. So, making short films. There's really no right or wrong way to approach making a short film. As long as you are capturing good quality video and good quality audio, and you're telling your story, you are practically executing a short film. But for those of you guys that want to maybe make something a little bit more professional grade or cinematic, right? That's what we're gonna focus on in this video particularly. If you guys want more advice on short filmmaking in general, definitely just let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to provide as much advice or make another video based on your questions. So a couple of disclaimers, guys. Some of the topics we're gonna cover definitely work in a practical sense, and if you apply them correctly, you can get a lot of results. They are not foolproof, and they're not always going to guarantee you the results that you want, but they're definitely gonna push you in the right direction. Remember guys, filmmaking is sort of a fluid art form. As long as you are confident and persistent, you can get the results that you want. Another thing is to keep in mind that while you can accomplish a short film for practically no money, it's important that you understand that you're not gonna be able to pull that off every single time. There is no real way to stay consistent in making movies for no money and then get them off the ground. I mean, not at the professional level. And that's really what we're gonna cover today, is how to get your short films to look as professional as possible for little to no money and be able to get your films out there to showcase your work so that hopefully you get hired as a director and then you're making budgeted short films or even feature films. So with that being said, let's jump into a couple of principles and how I applied them on my recent project, the Seance, which is currently in post-production. All right, so tip number one on how to make your no-budget professional looking film. And this might be a lot harder than it actually seems, but write a damn good script. Yeah. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I've always said it starts with the page, guys, and there is no exception to this rule. You guys have to write a really clever and well-executed script in order for you to first, A, have a compelling film anyway, and B, to be able to pull it off for little to no money. And the truth is, and some of you may not like to hear it, but you gotta think simple. Simple doesn't mean boring or cheap. Simple actually is much more complicated to creatively execute than something that has tons of bells and whistles. In fact, I would argue that some of the most effective short films are usually the ones that have a much more simple core idea. I'm not here to tell you what stories to write and what not to write, but when it comes to the prospect of making a no-budget professional grade film, keep it short. No longer than 12 pages. More pages means more running time, and more running time means more footage and more days of shooting, which can rack up the cost. Shorter is better. The next thing you want to keep in mind when writing your short film script is that you don't want it to have 50 different locations. You want to keep it to one, maybe two locations at most, and that they're simple and easy to access for you to film in. Like I said, if you're trying to film something on a space station that looks, like it's set in the year 2357, chances are that you're not gonna really find a set or location that's gonna match that aesthetic, at least to look effectively real, and your short film is just gonna suffer for it. Bottom line, you can write whatever story you want, but make sure that you're writing a story that you know that you can pull off when you shoot it. The way that I applied this technique to my short film is that I wrote a story that takes place around a table where 4 characters are interacting during a seance. Now, the fact that it's a seance already makes it interesting for the audience because there's a creepy factor in there and a few horror elements that can keep the viewer engaged. I further added more intrigue to the film by creating interesting characters that each had a hidden past. And that is how I made my story simple but effective. All right, tip number 2, and this one's kind of a long one with kind of sub points in between, but essentially it's be as resourceful as possible. I know it goes without saying, guys, but when you make a no-budget movie, you are going to have to pull all of your resources you have available to you. That means understanding the level of demand that your script requires, which is why you should keep it as simple as possible, and be able to actually execute it with the means that you may have at your disposal. Now, a lot of people may have access now to cameras like DSLRs and even more prosumer cameras or even professional cameras. Renting cameras are very cheap nowadays. You can find deals with rental houses that can give you lower rates, especially if you rent on a weekend, which is usually a lot cheaper than renting it for 3 days. And you can shoot your film over the weekend with that camera rental and be able to maximize the money that you've put into it. If you own a DSLR, shoot it on a DSLR. If you own an iPhone, shoot it on an iPhone. Well, you might be saying, hey Rob, iPhone isn't really professional grade. Well, no, it's not. It's not going to compete with a DSLR or some of the professional cameras that are out on the market right now. But if that is your only means to make the movie, that shouldn't restrict you from executing your story. However, if you've watched this video I made, which is 5 ways on how to make your videos stand out as more professional looking, you might get some better tips on how to execute iPhone footage and get a more professional grade look from it that can then allow you to tell your story. You're gonna have to pull resources wherever you can get them. Now, that's gonna mean asking for a lot of favors, and favors are okay. Just make sure that you can provide some sort of value or exchange to people that will allow them to maybe comply with your request and be flexible on the details on how you can achieve that. An example of that is, for our short film, we needed a location that looked a little bit more vintage because my film took place in the 1940s. Now, I know what you're saying. Rob, that goes against what you said at the beginning of the video when you were talking about your script and not making it elaborate and keeping it simple. You're right. But I chose that stylistically, I wanted this movie to feel like it was in the 1940s. And that didn't necessarily mean that it had to look 100% like the 40s. It just had to convey the feeling of that era. So the way that I was able to get my location for my film was I'd cast a friend of mine who is a very talented actress and happened to work at a very famous Hollywood hotel. And she suggested that they have a room that the hotel wasn't necessarily using that could fit the narrative perfectly. And when I went to go check it out, it had these black panel wooden walls that worked really well for the vibe that I was going for in the story. So we were able to work out with the hotel management if we could shoot for about 2 days from 8 to 10 hours in exchange for some promotional content that I could then make for the hotel for their marketing campaigns, and then throw in a little bit of the making of our film so that they could promote to their clients that they actually rent parts of the hotel for film shoots and photo shoots. And that is what it took for us to negotiate the use of their hotel facilities for our film. Now, a couple of disclaimers with this. You may think that your film is the greatest thing on planet Earth, and it probably is, but it doesn't necessarily mean that other people are going to think that when you are trying to get it made. So be prepared to hear a lot of no's, especially when there's no money involved. There's a chance that a location may turn away from you or say, you know what, it's not for us. Don't get discouraged, don't get frustrated, keep trying, keep looking, and be as resourceful as possible. Try to offer people something of value that they need, that they would be willing to give you what you need in order for it to be an even exchange. Another disclaimer is, and this one's the only one that you just can't really get around, is some locations, like the one that we shot in, are going to ask you for a certificate of insurance. If you don't have a certificate of insurance, you're more than likely not going to get that location, because a lot of people don't want people coming in and wrecking their location or there to be an accident, and all of a sudden they'd have to pay out of pocket for it. They're actually losing money, and this isn't good for anybody involved. You also don't want to get sued in case there is an accident. Definitely look into getting some sort of production insurance. A way of being resourceful that I've done in the past is actually gone and borrowed somebody else's production insurance with a written agreement that states that if there is some sort of mishap or accident, that I will cover the deductible of the insurance policy. There's a lot of new websites right now where you can sign up for a very low monthly fee and get a certificate of insurance for any given production. Remember, no budget filmmaking doesn't always mean zero money. Like, you might have to put in some dollars here and there. I personally found a company called Next, which had a subscription fee. It was perfect for what I needed. I was able to get a certificate of insurance over to the hotel, which covered up to $1 million in damage and liability, because you're just gonna sleep more soundly at night knowing that you are covered and protected in case anything goes down, because the fault will fall to you and you will be paying those costs out of pocket, which will cost you infinitely more than what your movie would have been worth if you don't have insurance. So if there's anything that you actually spend money when making your short film, look into getting production insurance. There's a lot of great resources out there. Now that covers locations and cameras, but you also need a lot of other gear or props or costumes in order to be able to pull off a short film effectively. And that really comes down to, again, being as resourceful as possible. What sort of costumes do you want to design? Again, if you're making something that's sci-fi or vintage, it's going to take a little bit more resourcefulness on your part in order to execute what you want to do. So keep that in mind when you're writing your script, to not make overtly complicated costumes. And if they are, it's something that you can pull off. There's a lot of great resources online. You can go on YouTube, you can really check out a lot of cosplayers and sort of how they execute costumes. And a lot of the times they're building these elaborate, amazing costumes for little to no cost because the materials are cheap. It does take time, it does take skill. So you may want to actually partner with a cosplayer and see if they can make you costumes with resources that maybe you buy on the cheap, or again, you provide some sort of value in exchange. Maybe these people need someone to create really awesome video content for their websites or social media pages. Find the resources to get the costumes that you need. And again, simple is always better. In the case of our short film with the Seance, we had my costume designer, Michelle, come in for free and help out. Now, I did spend a few dollars on a few accessories and jackets and things like that. You know, if you're gonna spend $10 on a few accessories or props that you need in order to pull off your film, it's probably a good idea to just spend that kind of money, own the props, modify them to however you need to, and then make your movie with those elements. There's a lot of places where you can get props and or clothing items that can enhance your costumes for very, very cheap, and that is exactly how Michelle worked with us. We were also fortunate that a lot of the actors had a lot of clothing already that could fit the bill of their characters, and so we played with a lot of the options that they already had. Again, be as resourceful as possible. There's no right or wrong way to do it to get what you need for your film. This leads us into tip number 3, which can be tricky, but you want to have really solid actors. Don't just cast your cousin or your best friend because they're available. Go on resources like Mandy.com or Craigslist. Find people that are wanting to develop their acting careers, because a lot of the times these people are very talented. They want a shot and an opportunity to show that talent. They still quite haven't made a name for themselves, and they need material in order for them to promote their career growth. Now, if you live in LA or places like Atlanta or Miami, you may be able to get access to Screen Actors Guild level actors, SAG actors, which is the actors union, and you'll have access to more experienced actors that may serve your story better and convey a much more professional level to your films. You might be thinking, SAG actors are expensive. Yes, I mean, for productions, the union is in place to make sure that actors are protected and paid what they're worth. However, there is a fantastic resource that SAG offers filmmakers with micro budgets, and that is the micro budget SAG agreement, which means if your budget is under $20,000, and that also constitutes $0, you are able to put SAG level actors in your film as long as you register your film with the Guild, submit the script, and follow along with their application process. Really, it only takes about 10 minutes to fill out. They're gonna ask you a bunch of questions about your film and make sure that you fall under the parameters of their agreement. If they approve you, you are able to use SAG level actors in your productions, and guess what? You can pay them a deferred payment, you can pay them some money, you are able to even pay them no money as long as your film isn't used for monetary gain. If you sell your film and make money off the film, then the contract dictates that you must pay the actors what they are worth depending on how much money you make. So if you're making $10,000, there's gonna be a stipulation for how much you have to pay out your actors from that. If you make $1 million, which would be great, you would have to pay them their full rates. However it is, bottom line is that the SAG micro-budget agreement is a great resource for anyone that's looking to use SAG-level actors in their films that are below a budget of $20,000. We used that on the Seance ourselves. We were able to secure 2 SAG-level actors that were gracious enough to join us for no money and did a fantastic job, and their performances really come through. And what really makes the movie what it is the level of acting that all 4 actors in the movie had, because we took the time to cast really good actors. Again, which is what you should be doing with your films. You could have the worst camera on planet Earth. As long as the video is clear enough, but the acting is strong, you're always going to engage your audience, because that is the human element that is going to capture the narrative that you're trying to execute. So don't skimp out on your actors. Make sure you take time to cast good ones. Tip number 4. What do I do in terms of post-production, music, editing, and all that? Well, a lot of the times, like I said, you're gonna have to be resourceful and utilize as many of those resources as you possibly can. I personally was able to get someone to help edit the film that I made, and I also contributed to the editing and the special effects because I had that skill set. Which means you may want to take some time to invest in learning how to edit and understanding how to edit properly. You can reach out to people on the internet and see if they are willing to edit your video for free. And again, you can provide some sort of exchange or some sort of producer credit in order for them to invest the time in editing your movie. Again, the simpler, the shorter, the better, because nobody wants to go and work on a 40-minute short that is 50 locations and tons of footage and all that. So make sure that you are utilizing your resources as effectively as possible to get the post-production process underway. The other thing that you're going to want to do is work on music. Now, hiring a composer may be very expensive and very difficult for you to execute. Again, take the same approach that you do with the actors. There may be a lot of composers that are trying to make a name for themselves, and they need projects like yours in order for them to take on the challenge of composing something that they can then show to other people. Again, work the exchange. Find resources online. You can go on Reddit or even on YouTube and ask people to see if they're willing to contribute to your short film. However, if finding a composer is proving difficult, you can always resort to stock music, and places like Epidemic Sound or other sites like that can provide you with great music at a very low cost for you to be able to populate your short film. Check the clauses there, because they may have a restriction on film festivals or wherever you decide to showcase your film. But if you're just gonna post it on YouTube and show people what you can do, using stock music is another great way to populate your film with fantastic music that can elevate the quality of your overall film. All right, guys, which leads us into tip number 5. Know great and talented people. And that I can't stress enough. As you start your filmmaking career and your journey, it's gonna be important that you meet people that have creative minds, or that at least share in the love of filmmaking that you can become friends with and hopefully collaborate with. Because the bottom line is that filmmaking is a collaborative art form, and you can't pull it off all by yourself. You might be able to, but it's just a lot more work, and a lot of the times the results are not gonna be as stellar as you would like them to, because if you're wearing too many hats, especially if you're doing a live action film, you're going to be bogged down by a lot of responsibilities. And I would say that your best directing work isn't gonna come from you operating camera, sound, directing the actors, lighting, doing it. It's just gonna be a huge problem, and your film's not gonna turn out the way that you would hope. It's just like Tarantino says, it's not your job to execute your vision, it's your job to have a vision and bring other people in that can follow your vision and be able to provide it for you. And again, you're gonna have to be resourceful in making sure that you can bring people on board that can help you, which is exactly what we did on the Seance. I was very fortunate to know a ton of creative and very talented individuals that all volunteered their time to come and help it and turned this movie into what it actually became. Don't neglect those favors, and always make sure to provide value for people in return. the more that you give, the more that you get. And I have seen that come back to me tenfold just from the people that were involved in this film. A lot of them I've helped in the past or have collaborated with in the past, and they were very gracious to come in and help me out when I needed to pull this film off. And we did it with like the best energy and vibes possible. And that is what really shines through in the movie. So make sure that you're always giving as much value as you are taking. Make sure that you also repay the favors that you ask of people. It's not that people expect that of you, but they also look at you as a resource. If you're ever asked to do something for them in return in the similar vein, always remember to pay them back with as much kindness and the same energy that they put into your film. And it will come back to you tenfold. All right, guys, that's our video. That is 5 ways on how to make a short film for little to no money. And I hope that this video has provided some sort of value and tangible, practical advice that you can apply on your projects. And if this is your way of making a short film because you have limited resources, I want to make sure you're set up for as much success as possible. Also, guys, if you're interested in more of the journey on how I made the Seance, definitely drop that also in the comments. If you did get some value from this video, please, hit the like and subscribe button. It does help provide a lot of support to the channel. It allows me to continue to make these videos, and that support goes a long way. Anyway, guys, that's our video. Thank you so much for watching it. It's great to be back making videos for you guys. I will hopefully have some more soon, but until then, let's forge that creative future. I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you and take care.